pretty funny. Fred Kerr, everybody. Fred Kerr.
So folks, I guess you knew that by this summer, marijuana is going to be legal in Canada. Are we excited about that? Anyone? Yeah. So the police will be able to check our saliva for cannabis, but only if they have a thing called reasonable suspicion. So you look forward to a completely new kind of check stop. The cop just reaches in your car window with an enormous bag of Doritos. Cracks them open and checks you for drool. So like a lot of Calgarians, I lost my job. Yeah, thanks for the sympathy. Appreciate that. But don't worry, I won't be unemployed for long. Because like our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, I've got that Bachelor of Arts degree in literature to fall back on. You know, after seeing Justin prance around India with his family all dressed up in Indian outfits, it strikes me that Canada being led by Justin is a bit like the entire country just showed up at a gunfight, armed only with a selfie stick. I've changed my diet since I lost my job, folks. I'm trying to eat a lot more free-range, locally grown, organic squirrel. Squirrel's an acquired taste, folks, but you gotta try my flambé d'écureuil écrasé. I should have explained my undergrad's actually in French literature, and that squished squirrel on fire. Here's a little shout out now as we close up the food section of the show. I just want to give a little shout out to those of you who are not actually allergic to gluten, but are maybe just avoiding gluten because that's so trendy. You know, gluten-free food is devoid of nutrients, costs extra, and best of all, tastes like shit. So here's the thought, maybe just eat some damn gluten and try to be less of a douche. Douchiness is going to matter, folks. We laugh, but douchiness will matter when Trump starts World War III, cannibalism breaks out. First people eaten in that scenario are always going to be the most annoying people, the gluten avoiders, and of course our friends, the vegans, neither of whom were strong enough to fight back. I don't know if anybody else had this problem of Starbucks getting your name wrong. Anybody have that problem? Yeah, so my name's got 4 letters, F-R-E-D, none of them silent. I'm watching barista Brittany concentrate a little too hard as she scrawls on my cup. A couple of minutes later, barista Michaela calls out, "Tall mocha, ready for," and she squints at the cup. She says, "Sorry, is it Fred or fired?" Shows me the cup. It says F-I-R-E-D. Jesus. I said, "Well, tell you the truth, Brittany, it's both. Fred and fired." But I'm at peace with it now. Listen, I don't suppose you folks have got any job openings here because I've got a BA in literature and I am great at spelling. My kids, as it turns out, won't eat squirrel 7 nights a week. Had to come up with a cheap squirrel substitute. Fortunately, IGA's got a new fish called tilapia. Went out, bought me some tilapia, brought it home, had a tilapia lunch for the kids before we headed out to the zoo. At the hippo tank, I don't know if you've been, but you notice there's a school of fish circling around the hippo that apparently help keep the tank clean by consuming a lot of hippo excrement. So, sensing a teachable moment, as all parents do, I turned to the zookeeper and said, "Sir, would you mind just telling us, for the kids' benefit, what is the name of that helpful, shit-eating fish you got there in the tank?" And as you can imagine, the zookeeper said, "Well, that's tilapia, sir." Yeah, true story. So that, folks, was the last time anybody in our house ever ate tilapia. I guess that's less of a joke than a bit of a public service announcement. So moving along, when I was in elementary school, my parents signed me up for Cubs. Now, Wolf Cubs, for those who weren't part of that organization, are boys between the ages of 8 and 10 years old who can't do sports. Yeah, probably shocking to hear the chiseled Adonis that you see tonight was not always sporty, but I'm afraid it's true. Every gym class was as awkward for me as if Justin Trudeau were trapped in a Mensa meeting. But because I knew that athletic ability was inherited, I feared that my gimpiness would be passed on to my kids, as it was, and I became a Cub leader, mostly out of guilt. The Cub organization does an outstanding job preventing creepy adults from becoming leaders, but they've been a lot less successful preventing satanic kids from becoming Cubs. Some of these little bastards should just have been tasered. These are jokes, folks, for God's sake. But the Cub leadership experience did reinforce something that I'm proud to say I already knew about myself, which is that I'm the opposite of a pedophile. I can't fucking stand other people's kids. You know, folks, as we think about the inappropriateness that's happened in Hollywood, a lot of men getting arrested for doing sexually inappropriate things, I guess the thing that strikes me about that is I'm amazed that any middle-aged man believes that anyone wants to see his middle-aged junk. I don't have that level of confidence in my product, folks. I don't like to get naked in front of my own girlfriend, let alone total strangers. My chest is so hollow I could collect rainwater in it, which is going to come in handy when I fill my ambition of being homeless in Vancouver. Every day I get up and get dressed and look at this face and I say, you know, nothing really goes with white with red spots. I guess you could say I'm kind of the opposite of a white supremacist. I'm more of a white inadequate. I just made that up, folks. That's a new one. Yeah, so you've heard a lot of people use the phrase, I'm dating myself, right? When they tell a story from the distant past. But for years I did date myself because nobody else would. The stock just wasn't trading, folks. I had to become sexually self-sufficient. But I did eventually get a date at the very end. Thank you for that belated reaction. I did eventually get a date at the very end of grade 12, but it didn't go well. We had nothing to say to each other. She sort of babbled to fill the awkward silence while I just prayed for sweet, sweet death to take me away. Years later, I learned that she'd actually become a lesbian, and I like to think I deserve a lot of the credit for that. You know, I used to think I was a good driver, too, until I put my car in a giant 360 spin, crossed 2 lanes of the highway, somehow nobody hits me. I'm sitting there in the opposite ditch, heart pounding, and I hear this hissing sound. So I'm looking around, the engine compartment, the hoses are totally fine, and I looked at the cup holder, where my Diet Dr. Pepper was foaming like a rabid Doberman. That Dr. Pepper sacrificed itself so that I might survive to experience divorce and unemployment in the golden age of Justin Trudeau and Rachel fucking Notley. Thank you so much, Dr. Pepper. I have just a couple of other things to say and we'll wrap this up, folks. But speaking of doctors, and this is a true story, a group of fertility doctors ran short of sperm donors and started using their own semen to fertilize patients' eggs. Now, it seems bizarre, but it's shockingly common. You can look it up. I guess these clowns figure that the victims should just be grateful to have a doctor in the family. Anyway, as you can imagine, they got caught. They're being sued for 3 things: negligence, breach of trust, and my personal favorite, they're also being sued for cavalier use of sperm. I put it to you this way, gentlemen, who among us has not occasionally been somewhat cavalier with our sperm? I think about my own lifetime sperm allocation record. Apart from the 3 kids, mostly fairly cavalier. You know, when a man's unemployed, folks, he's got a lot of time on his hands, maybe too much time. And when my thoughts drift towards the adult entertainment industry, as they occasionally do, it strikes me that 90% of porn is actually made for straight men. Straight men want to see women. So why in God's name does every male porn star need a gigantic baby arm in his pants? Who the fuck is this even for? Look, we men are frustrated enough that for many of us, sex amounts to occasionally being alone with our thoughts, perhaps lubricated by a stream of our own lonely tears. We don't need to be body shamed by these giant porn schlongs. But we're just trying to get a little cavalier with our sperm. So my advice to you youngsters who are just taking your first steps along your lifetime journey in porn, switch to Japanese. With Japanese porn, you can ignore the goofy dialogue because it's in Japanese. The actresses are very attractive, and the male actors are, how would I put this, not intimidating. And I'm Fred Kerr. Thank you for listening.
Keep it going, guys. Fred Kerr, everybody like this. Oh, man. Cavalier with my sperm. That's my favorite line.